let's talk Joker 2.
Speaking about DC.
I know, right? Well, this is another movie that, unfortunately, in my opinion, does not have to be made.
Mm-hmm.
That is an issue for me. Yesterday with Chris Carr here, we were talking about Jurassic World Dominion is coming out, and how they're like, will it be the last one? I'm like, well, the first one made $1.67 billion. The second one made $1.31 billion. If it makes over $1 billion, there's no way they end up not making more. It's just not.
Because even if it makes half of that,
yeah.
I mean, it's still
if it's profitable, it's profitable. They're going to keep. I don't trust them to actually believe in artistic vision, because in the end of the day, as artistic as a lot of these directors are, it's still a business. It's still commercial art. So this article is from MovieWeb, and it says Joker 2 rumored for 2023 production start date. The latest Joker 2 rumors suggest that the first draft has been turned into Warner Brothers, with tentative plans to start filming next year. The Clown Prince of Crime. I hate it when they use the weird nicknames in these write-ups. The Clown Prince of Crime.
Look, to defend journalism.
I know.
Sometimes you just get tired of saying the actor, the character, the Joker. Like, he's just trying to flesh it out. He's also trying to give context. Like, if you've never heard of the Joker, like, he's a bad guy, not a hero.
My favorite thing to point out is whenever we have topics with singers is what song they're going to reference in the Set Fire to the Rain singer.
Yeah.
Like I that's like a joke to me. It's like, what song are they going to... They need to use more obscure songs.
Well, the point is that they are referencing something that you might remember, so they shouldn't use obscure songs. Like, that would be nice for you if you actually follow the music, but like for the function of doing something like that, like, this tells me that he's a bad guy, that he's like a big deal. I mean, that he is a clown. Like,
we're getting a journalism class right now.
I just, it can be really hard when you're in an article and you're like, the actor said, the 34-year-old said, he said, the user last name, like, you're trying to add some flair to your writing.
Orange suit wearing teal tie, orange suit wearing teal tie,
this
sporting clown.
And does he always wear an orange suit in every depiction of him? Sometimes a purple one, like, but he is,
the colorful suit wearing,
the criminal.
The colorful suit wearing, they could say.
So the clown, insane clown posse.
No.
That's coming.
I think that's copyrighted.
Yeah, it is.
The Clown Prince of Crime sequel could be entering development next year. Ever since the immense success of Todd Phillips' Joker in 2019, there have been rumors of the supervillain origin story getting its own sequel. These rumors continue to persist, and the latest word out of the rumor mill is that the sequel has taken a big step forward, with a tentative start date in place. According to Heroic Hollywood, a Warner Brothers insider has revealed that the studio has just received the first draft of the Joker 2 screenplay. Additionally, there are plans to start shooting sometimes in 2023. Without any official confirmation, it's best to take these rumors with a grain of salt at this time. Like, I could see this being one of those things where maybe they did get the screenplay, but then they added on the part about, and it's going to start filming next year, because it just sounds like...
Well, I wonder, too, I'm not as familiar with this industry, but, like, there's there's like a production calendar. So if you know that you have a movie turned in by this time, there are certain probably deadlines. It's like, well, this kind of movie, we want this time frame of a release, which means we have this much time to film it, which means we can start production by now, which means we have to finalize the script by this point, and you work backwards and set the date. So that's where I think that may have come from, but who knows?
With Marvel, I would buy that more, because Marvel is so good at when they release their phases for Marvel movies, they give you like a general date that they're all going to be released, and they tend to be very good at sticking to those dates, barring any type of injuries or things like that. With DC, they have such a problem with just announcing stuff for the sake of announcing stuff. Half of it gets made, half of it doesn't get made. Do
you think they announce like that to like gauge audience interest?
Yes. That, and I think part of it is like... they get excited about one project does mildly well. Like, we talked about this one with all the there's all these announcements about the Batman spin-offs coming out, and why are you announcing all this when you don't know for sure? Like, it takes away from, because now then everything is going to feel like bogged down in the rumor mill until you actually get official start dates for filming, and that takes away from the excitement of the official announcement. Like, the reason that the Batman announcement was so good was because they had a logo picked out. It was already set up that what they were going to, when the release was going to be, all this stuff. You have like test art or like concept art drawn up, stuff like that. So you can do that, right? But DC just has a problem of constantly always announcing projects, and so many of them either don't come out or they get constantly pushed back, and then people just start to feel like they're being I guess catfished isn't really the term, but
misled.
They're being misled. for the sake of promotion. So it says Joker was directed by Todd Phillips and written by Phillips and Scott Silver. It serves as an origin story for the Joker and how a failed clown and comedian ends up becoming the most dastardly villain in Gotham City. The open-ended sequel has left fans debating whether a sequel is truly needed. I truly believe that a sequel is not needed for this movie doesn't need. Never needed a sequel. It's in fact, I think that they lose a lot of the
power of the movie. I feel that. I think sometimes that like it's tempting to keep going, but it's more efficient to tell a story once and tell it correctly than try to expand the universe. But it goes against this superhero format. You know?
Exactly.
But I haven't seen the original Joker. I know I should have. It was one of the things I did really want to watch and have always regretted that I haven't seen it. But it attracted people who weren't necessarily following the Marvel or DC universes.
And the media blew it out of proportion.
Yeah, that's
true
too. But it also didn't look like your traditional. I mean, partially because it's a villain story, but partially because like it just didn't look the way other superhero movies look. And I think that draws in an audience. By expanding it, I think they lose some of that authentic magic.
Lot of it.
Yeah.
I guess the bet they have to make with themselves at this point is the mystique that is lost by making a sequel too much to outweigh the sheer force of $1 billion movie getting a sequel and pushing forward. So the idea is that so many people are on board now just by virtue of how many people saw the original. You will continue to make money. Even if it doesn't have the same special feel that the first one had.
Right, and I'd be curious to see, I mean, like, who's involved in writing this, like...
Same team,
and like what other things have what has that team been working on in the interim, right? That might give you an insight into the way they approach the telling of stories over the course of several movies.
Another thing is that... a big part of it was also they got Joaquin Phoenix back. That's a big part of it because he's definitely like an actor's actor. He's not going to take roles that he doesn't feel strongly about.
Which is probably a good indication that the film will be a strong answer to the first one.
That would be the hope, right? So kind of in the same way that who is it that did... Daniel Day-Lewis was very picky about the roles that he took. The film was originally pitched and developed as a one-off, and the idea that it could lead to other DC characters getting their own solo films over the past couple of years. There have been reports of Joker sequel entering development at Warner Brothers. A significant update came last year, and it was reported that Phillips had signed on to write the script for the sequel, but wasn't officially confirmed by the studio or Phillips. And then there was also the rumor about William Dafoe wanting to play an alternate version of the Joker in that movie, like because there's a very well-known story called Three Jokers. That would have involved multiple versions of the character at one time, and Dafoe is kind of in that same category of actor as Joaquin Phoenix. So there's a lot of excitement for that. I don't think that's the way they'll go for this movie, but I do think that there's something to be said about a movie that makes $1 billion without China, which is very, very hard to do in current year. But it's also not going to have. It won't have the media backlash that the first one got. Because it was a boy who cried wolf situation. They're like, it's gonna make all the incels right. It was literally the most comical. The reporters were comic book villains in the promotion for this movie, to the point where Warner Brothers kicked them out of some of the promotional material because they were asking, like, they were sick of being asked the same questions, like, do you think this is going to encourage violence?
Right.
Like, which is stupid. It's a movie.
And also, like, you don't ask that of any other movies that include violence.
Exactly. So it got this backlash. Kind of it's like some people just hate things just to hate them. My recent example is people who hate NFTs just because they don't understand them. And it's always like the environmental concern of NFTs, which is dubious at best to prove, but not a reason that you should hate something so badly that you don't that you just tell everyone that it's a blanket bad idea no matter what. There's a recent story about Neil Gaiman literally pulling down an NFT that he was doing for charity because the backlash was so bad. And so a lot of people, they hate things just for the sake of hating them. They don't even really know why.
Yeah.
And a lot of journalists felt that way about this movie, and then they were mad when no violence happened.
Yeah.
Remember, there was
violence that it seems like they hyped up.
That they wanted. It was like they wanted it. They wanted that violence to happen. Like, there was cops being sent to movie theaters when this came out, and I was like, any person who can see the forest through the trees is like, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
What was the Aurora, Colorado shooting? That was a Batman movie.
Yes, it
right?
was.
And did the guy dress up as Joker or
No.
something?
I don't think so.
There
No,
was
he
something I
didn't.
had like dyed red hair.
He had orange hair and he went into the movie theater.
but it wasn't in connection with the character.
No, he said he was inspired by it.
So like again, there are like
But the Joker's appeared on screen since then. And
Yeah.
the same hysteria has not.
it's
been
not
had.
really connected. Like you can see where there's sort of a weak connection.
Yeah.
or
It's like they
whatever,
spun a
but-
narrative and got spun up in their own narrative.
Well, it's like if we're all journalists, we're all our different news entities, and Miracle says that this movie is coming out in the last time, several years ago when this
Yeah.
movie came out, you know, there was a shooting in the theater, and then you say, reports indicate that, you know, that other previous Joker movies have had violence associated with them, and I say concerns are rising that
Yes.
this movie could, given the history of violence associated with this movie, like
Yes.
Yeah.
it's a spiral out of control, and it's inaccuracy because it's over interpretation of like how the story's being presented.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of it was also they're like it's a story about incels, and it ended up being it was literally a story about where it shows pity on the mentally ill and explains somebody who's got severe emotional trauma
And
and,
I would
layers
actually-
him as a character.
Sure, and like I actually think that you could do a movie about incels and that could be interesting, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to
Even
be
that's
violence.
just a buzz term to me now. Like I really do hate buzzwords.
There are buzzwords, but also like I would like the idea of movies and content that explores these buzz terms. Like, what does it really mean to be an incel? Like, who are we thinking of? Because we can all think of a stereotype,
Yeah.
but like, what are we actually getting at? And then to use that to explore, like, what is the root issue here?
Yeah.
Well, if they do make a movie about incel, they should do a documentary. But there's like not a comic book, it's a webtoon that I like to read that's called The Cursed Princess Club, and they have incel princes. And I cringed right away. I was like, I don't like this chapter. It's dumb. Because like they saw this one guy who's like really handsome. They're like, screw that guy. He's stealing all our women. And I'm like, no.
No.
But
Yeah.
like legit, if they do make an incel movie, I think it would be better as a documentary.
It'd be fascinating. I mean, I would be really curious to see.
See, I mean, I have literally no interest in anything like that because first of all, I don't have any faith that whoever makes it is going to be unbiased, going to be even close to unbiased, or that it's going to show both sides of the story.
Yeah, but it would be
Um,
interesting to hear like
Yeah.
how, I don't know, could be interesting. It's not, obviously has nothing to do with if Joker 2 is
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah, but did you watch the Joker movie, Brett?
Yes.
Like, so did you like it how like they kind of interpret that he was like an incel? He had like mother issues and like mental issues.
That term doesn't even apply. He was just somebody who had a really rough life because he suffered from mental illness and severe family trauma.
Yeah.
Like,
But how do you know that doesn't mean he's an incel? Like, that's the thing about exploring these terms. Like, he might be, even though it's not the thing that we wanted
I
to
guess
define
I
him
just
by.
hate the fact that there's a term for it at all. Okay, he's
Yeah.
just a dude who hasn't had a chance to have a successful love life because of a myriad of psychological trauma that has caused him great pain, which led to him being violent because the world has constantly told him that he's unimportant and that he doesn't matter, which eventually.
But there are a lot of people who get told horrible things like that and do not turn to violence.
No, but I'm saying I hate that the term is now that makes him an incel. I hate that. I just think he's just a dude who's had romantic struggles or hasn't. I hate the fact that there has to be a label for everything like that. I guess,
for
more
me,
than
when I
anything.
imagine an incel, I imagine like a guy like basically demanding women to love them. That's what I imagine.
and
Yeah,
that's not
I
what this
think that
character
there's a
is.
term for incel that just like comes from the word involuntary celibate.
yeah.
And you know, it's interesting that this movie, and I wonder how it'll factor into.
And I don't think
the
it will play a
remake.
big.
But like, what is interesting about it is like someone who self-identifies as an incel
Yeah.
might perceive why they have not had a successful romantic relationship.
Yeah.
For one way, maybe because they have struggled with mental illness, maybe because they're shy, maybe because who knows. But as someone on the other side might have the opposite approach. I mean, the opposite understanding of incel, which is someone who is frustrated with things they have not been able to accomplish socially or
Yeah.
romantically,
Yep.
and take it out in inappropriate ways. I mean, there are a lot of ways to define this, and I think that like it's, you know, I think what's going to be interesting is how they move forward with that in Joker 2. I also think that like the media hype that leads up to this movie. Like in some ways, this like rumors. Like it's not even confirmed. The studio didn't even say, "Oh yeah, we have a script. It's in development."
Yep.
Like there's just a rumor that this possibly could happen at some future date, and I feel like that's to test the waters to see like is the public ready to have this debate? Because you're right, like this movie was such a controversial topic for several months.
And my guess is that going into a sequel, it will be a lot less avant-garde and will probably tie into comic book lore more heavily than the first one did.
Yeah.
That actually, I scratched that. I was like thinking out loud there. I don't know how much they're going to want to continue to pull in other characters. Bruce Wayne and his dad, and we're only barely connected in that movie. I mean, it's very, very like he even said beforehand, like they just wrote a movie and found a way to fit comic book characters into it. It wasn't conceived as
which I think is more appealing in some ways. Like I think it's interesting to have a movie that, like, if you told the movie of the Joker maybe without using the brand the Joker, I think that movie still would have been successful. From what I understand about it, like it was strong for a lot of reasons, and then making it the Joker makes it relatable or makes it like interesting to a series of people who have followed this character over decades.
I tend to think that it wouldn't be as I
Really?
think that the reason it was successful is because of the name attached to it. I think had it been just mentally ill person movie, it just if it was given a generic name and was just told, and the story was told in the exact same way, it would have had none of the media hype around it, and the media hype ended up Streisand affecting this movie and making it as successful as it did. And part of that's because of the lore of that character. The character of the Joker has so much history behind it, between who portrays it, not just the comics themselves, but who has portrayed the character in the past. There's the horrific what happened to Heath Ledger. There's so much lore behind it, along with the media hype connected to it. I don't think the media would have cared without the name attached to it. So I think it would have ended up making an eighth of the money and finishing third at the box office that weekend if it didn't have the powerhouse that is the character's actual name attached to the movie.
Maybe.
It says something about the marketability of these stories, that you can tell these stories, you can tell the same great story, and without some IP that has been tried and true tested, you won't be able to reach the same amount of people. That's just the way of the world, unfortunately. So I do hope that they make it, if they do make it, they continue to keep it only tangentially connected to the comics. Don't make it a comic book movie. Make it a story about that character again. So that would be my hope. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.